I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into the marketing department's large meeting room. There was a tray of artisanal cupcakes and a banner that read, "Welcome, Haley," in a whimsical font. They only ever brought out the special cupcakes when someone was about to be axed, or when our creative director, Steve, had a major breakthrough on a new ad campaign. This time, though, it was me, Victoria Shaw. 10 years of turning client chaos into quarterly stability. I was being smoothly transitioned out over melon balls and empty smiles. "We're so grateful for all your contributions," chirped Melissa from HR, blinking like she practiced empathy in the mirror that morning. But with the company's new direction, fresh voices, new leadership, we think it's time to evolve. I stared at her, blinking just once. Evolve into what? A LinkedIn hallucination? That's when she waltzed in. Haley, 23, wearing white boots in November and a crop blazer that screamed, "I have never paid rent in my life." She introduced herself like she was launching a skincare line. "Hi, I'm Haley. I'm super passionate about synergy, investor vibes, and building vertical brand narratives. No resume, just a ring light tan and a father with venture capital fangs. By the way, if you're still listening and not hate scrolling already, do me a solid, tap that subscribe button and drop a like. 97% of folks never do, and our team runs on caffeine, petty revenge, and your validation." Anyway, she took my office. Literally, the same chair, the same window view I fought for during the 2017 remodel when they tried to stick me in a cubicle by the copy machine. And I wasn't even out the door yet before she asked if she could rebrand my Outlook signature. I packed up in silence. No dramatic speech. No last day tears. I put my things, my lucky stapler, a photo of me and Mark from legal at our last investor summit, and my beat-up leather address book into a cardboard box like some cliché out of a made-for-TV firing. Except here's what they didn't know. That address book, not just a relic, it held birthdays, allergies, golf scores, grandchildren's names. Every investor that ever mattered had a card with my handwriting, my notes. Not digital, not in Salesforce, just mine. As I walked past Haley's new throne, she didn't even look up from her phone. Probably too busy editing a boomerang of her oat milk latte. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I exited through the side door. Didn't even bother saying goodbye to the exec team. They wouldn't have noticed. I'd been invisible to them ever since I stopped laughing at their off-color golf jokes. Outside, my phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Harrison, one of our most high-stakes, high-net-worth investors. "What happened?" It read. Just that. 2 words. No emojis. That was his version of an emotional breakdown. I didn't answer, just stood there, under the dying sun, clutching a box full of institutional memory, and smiled for the first time all day. They thought they fired an employee. They didn't realize they fired the hard drive, and they were about to try booting the system with a TikTok filter and a Pinterest board called Boss Babe Energy. The thing about getting fired is no one tells the office plants. My lopsided pothos named Stan drooped like he knew. I gave him a final water from the emergency mug stash in my bottom drawer, then gently pried his roots from the dirt-stained IKEA pot I'd brought from home 10 years ago. Everything else went into the box. A cracked glass paperweight shaped like an ampersand, a mint tin full of rogue thumb drives, and that address book. Its corners were peeling, hinges squeaking like a guilty conscience. It held more influence than our CRM ever did. Because I didn't just know the clients, I understood them. There was no farewell gathering, no awkward cupcakes, just a silence so thick it echoed off the hallway tiles. A few employees peeked out of their cubicles when they saw me walking by with the box, then disappeared like prairie dogs dodging a hawk. No one wanted to be caught making eye contact with a ghost. I paused at the end of the corridor, just outside the executive wing, where they'd already installed a rose quartz diffuser and replaced the strategic planning whiteboard with a vision board made of magazine cutouts and Haley's handwriting in bubble letters. More vibes, less metrics. That's when it hit me. They replaced corporate memory with a scented candle and Canva fonts. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Doors were already closing behind me. Soft, magnetic, final. Downstairs in the lobby, I set the box on the granite bench and stared at my reflection in the glass. I didn't look like someone who had lost. I looked like someone who just got free. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Heard you're out. Big mistake on their part. Let me know if you need anything. That one was from Brenda. Yes, that Brenda. The same woman who once threatened to sue our firm over a reporting delay during Q1 earnings and now sends me artisanal fudge from Oregon every year. And then another. WTH happened? Are you okay? She's the owner's daughter. Jesus. I stared at the screen. These weren't pity messages. These were pings from the nervous system. Neurons still firing even though the brain had been removed. Except they didn't realize I was the brain, or at least the part that kept things from falling into seizure. I didn't reply, just archived them, because deep in the address book was a card, unlabeled, written in faded red ink that had nothing to do with company records. It was a direct line to one of our firm's silent partners. A name most people in that building didn't even know was on the board. I tapped it twice with my thumb, then placed it back where it belonged. The birthday of our loudest investor's poodle and a list of nut allergies from the annual retreat. Because when systems collapse, it's never the blowout that matters. It's what's missing when the smoke clears. And I had the receipts, handwritten, and not available in the cloud. 3 days after my exit, Haley summoned the kingdom. An all-hands meeting at 10 a.m. mandatory attendance catered by some vegan taco truck she found on TikTok. She stood in front of the projector wearing a blazer 2 sizes too small, and heels she clearly didn't break in. The PowerPoint had animated sparkles. The title slide said, From Drab to Fab, the new era of branding. First thing out of her mouth, welcome team, or should I say family. A collective groan rippled through the room. Then she mispronounced 3 department names in under 60 seconds. Big shout out to the Latix team analytics. Gratitude for the payroll folks holding down the fort. She even managed to thank John from Data Infrastructure. John, who quit in March. Nobody corrected her. They just started mentally updating their resumes. Then came the big reveal, a brand refresh, new logo, new tagline, new mission statement crowdsourced via Instagram poll. She showed a mood board filled with muted beige tones, photos of candles, a quote from Marilyn Monroe she clearly thought was Maya Angelou. I want this brand to feel like a warm bath, she said, eyes wild with buzzword ecstasy, not like a spreadsheet. That afternoon, she let go of Nora, our compliance officer of 11 years, because she wasn't in alignment with the new energy. Translation: Nora told her she couldn't just move client funds between cost centers without reporting protocols. Haley's response: Are we so obsessed with rules? Rules are fear-based. Growth is flow. Then she started shifting numbers around in the budget portal to make Q3 look like Q2. I know this because someone from finance forwarded me a screenshot with the subject line. Can you believe this? I didn't reply. I just read the forwarded thread, including Haley's request to put the unbilled into the innovation fund, and laughed so hard I nearly dropped my glass of wine. There's no innovation fund. I made it up once during a shareholder dinner when a board member wanted to know where we hid travel reimbursements for off-the-books meetings. The fund became a joke until now. Now, Haley had discovered it in the Excel labyrinth and treated it like a Swiss bank account. By week's end, 3 senior staffers had quietly texted me. One wanted to know where the investor protocol template was. Another asked how I used to track the early dividend schedules. The third just wrote, I miss oxygen. I ignored them all, not because I didn't want to help, but because some collapses need silence. Let the floor give out. Let them realize the lights were never automatic. I'd just been flipping the switch every morning before they arrived. Let them feel the chill when the heat doesn't come on. Haley thought leadership was charisma and pastel aesthetics. What she didn't know, even imagine, was that this company didn't survive off vision boards and borrowed equity. It survived off sweat, whispered favors, investor birthday calls at 9 p.m., and an invisible scaffolding built one sticky note at a time. And now she was shaking that scaffolding like a snow globe. I wasn't going to stop her. I was going to watch. It all came to a head on the third Monday after my exit, also known in that office as Investor Forecast Week, or as Haley called it, Vision Alignment Check-In. She walked into the glass-walled conference room in a silk pantsuit the color of unripe avocado and told the finance team, "Let's just pull the Q3 synthesis and drop it into the investor deck. Shouldn't take more than 10 minutes, right?" They blinked at her. Not one person moved. That's when she spun toward James from IT. "Can you just pull the file?" "The Q3 synthesis," James said slowly. He was trying not to set off a bomb. "You mean the reporting matrix?" "Yeah, that," she said, waving a bejeweled hand. "The one Victoria used. Just grab it from the cloud." The silence after that was glorious. James scratched the back of his neck. "There is no file." "What?" "There is no single file. Victoria ran it manually every quarter. She had a dozen linked spreadsheets, 5 pivot trackers, and a locked cycle forecasting model that she built off the revenue intake sheets. She didn't save it as a package. She rebuilt it every time. Haley blinked. "Wait, she did it all herself?" "She was the system," someone else mumbled from the back. "It might have been the controller or the ghost of common sense." "Hard to say." Haley laughed nervously. "Okay, that's insane. That's bad infrastructure. I'll just ask AI to recreate it." James didn't even pretend to hide his reaction. "Yeah, no, we wouldn't even know where to begin." She had tabs, referencing archived folders that no one has access to anymore. I think some of the formulas were in Latin. By the end of the day, Haley was pacing the office barefoot, her heels abandoned under her desk, and whispering frantic half-sentences into her AirPods like a hostage, negotiating with a bad connection. She tried to bluff through the Tuesday sync with one of our bigger investors, patched together some loose data from the marketing team, and slapped it into a Canva presentation. It was bold. There were GIFs. There were bar graphs with no y-axis labels. There was a slide that just said, "Revenue is a journey." Mid-call, the investor cut her off. "Where's Victoria?" She froze. "I'm sorry." "Where's Victoria?" He repeated. "She usually walks us through these numbers. She's moved on." "To where?" I'm not sure." The line went quiet, and I'll circle back when someone who understands the ledger is in the room. Click. That happened 4 more times. By Thursday, Haley looked like a stretched-out loofah. Her spray tan had begun to separate into patches. She was holding meetings standing up, trying to look decisive, but her voice cracked. She kept saying leverage when she meant loss. She kept insisting everything was on track while visibly sweating through her blazer. I, meanwhile, was sitting on my porch with a French press and a biscotti, watching hummingbirds knife the air. I'd gotten a few more texts by then, more whispers. "She's asking how you used to calculate the rolling net margin," Greg from Client Strategy wrote. I told her it was a mix of moon phases and eldritch math. I didn't respond. I was past the point of gloating. This wasn't just schadenfreude anymore. It was vindication, cold and carbonated. They had scoffed at my old-fashioned ways, my spreadsheets, my color-coded tabs, my refusal to rely on bloated cloud software that couldn't interpret nuance. Now they were lost in a forest with no map because I was the map and they'd thrown it out with the fruit tray. The invitation came as a calendar ping, Coffee with no location, no details, no sender listed. But I knew who it was. Only one person ever sent me blank invites like that. Elijah Mendez, one of the firm's ghost shareholders. He never appeared on the website, never attended board meetings, but somehow always got the annual summary 3 days early and signed with a fountain pen. When Elijah wanted a conversation, it meant the iceberg had already hit the hull. He just wanted to know who still had a lifeboat. We met at a little cafe, no briefcase, no preamble. "Victoria," he said, folding his newspaper and setting it down like he was about to offer me a chess game. "How's retirement?" I smiled, still deciding if it suits me. He chuckled. "Tell me, did you know they reclassified long-term contracts as short-term revenue in the Q3 statements?" I sipped my coffee. "No, but that's bold." He nodded slowly like he was admiring a particularly dangerous species from behind glass. "She's not equipped." "She?" I said innocently. The influencer with a business degree and inspirational captions. "Haley." He waved it off. "Off the record, this is a mess. The investor group chat is lighting up like Christmas in Vegas. One of them posted a screenshot of an email she sent about, what was it? Emotional ROI. I nearly snorted into my latte. She used Comic Sans. That almost made me cry." He continued, leaning in. "Point is, they're not just grumbling. They're organizing, comparing notes, talking pullouts. They're asking the same question. Where's Victoria?" I didn't answer, didn't nod, just let the words settle in the air like steam off the cup between us. He sat back. "I'm not asking you to come back. That train left." "Did it?" I said softly, testing him. He paused, measured me, then, "They'll offer. Eventually, out of panic, not respect. Don't take it. Just be ready." And with that, he stood, smoothed his coat, and left me with the check. That evening, I did something I hadn't done since my firing. I opened the address book, not to dial, just to look. I thumbed through names like an old photo album. Not clients, not leads, people. People I had studied through market downturns, divorces, health scares, bad PR, and botched IPOs. Investors who trusted me because I showed up, not with platitudes, but with spreadsheets that bled solutions and birthday cards that arrived early. That's when the first call came in. Not to my phone, my other number, the one I only gave to 6 people. "Hey," the voice said. "Can you meet?" No pressure, just guidance. I paused, then said, "Friendly advice only," because I wasn't planning revenge. Not yet. I was becoming something better. The kind of silence that makes people nervous. The kind of silence that waits. The subject line read, "We're back and bolder than ever." It hit inboxes on a Thursday morning, 9:03 a.m. sharp, sent from Haley's Chief Growth Evangelist account. No one in legal approved it. No one in compliance even knew it existed. The email was a Canva monstrosity. Gradients, confetti animations, 4 different fonts, and a badly compressed video of Haley standing in front of a whiteboard covered in Post-it notes saying things like "disrupt the silo" and "vibe equals scalable." But the real punch wasn't the design. It was the spreadsheet embedded 2 scrolls down. A live Google Sheets preview, unprotected with full internal revenue projections, burn rates, and unverified pipeline numbers. It wasn't even password locked. Anyone with the link could see how badly they'd been faking the numbers. One tab was literally titled Investor Story versus Actuals, like it was an SNL sketch. By 10 a.m., phones were lighting up like a slot machine on fire. An investor forwarded the email to their entire portfolio group with a single caption. "Is this a prank?" Another replied, all with pulling 50% until further clarity. Haley didn't notice the panic right away. She was too busy posting a selfie on LinkedIn about female empowerment in startup culture with the caption, "I said yes to risk," and the universe said yes to me. By noon, her phone had rung 16 times. One of those calls, mine. He didn't know it was me, of course. I was listed in 3 phones under pseudonyms: Project Violet, The Red Pen, and my personal favorite, Martha Spreadsheet. She called back. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, "Hey, super weird day. Can we maybe chat for like 2 secs? Nothing major." Ha ha ha. I didn't reply. Instead, I reviewed a brief prepared by a contact in the investor trust group. Wanted me to take a peek at the new capital flow procedures. Not formally, of course. Just off the record. Friendly eyes. I said I'd look, but only for an hour. That turned into 3. By dusk, I was on a Zoom call with 2 private equity guys I hadn't spoken to since the 2018 acquisition panic. They sent over a digital bottle of wine and asked, "So, when exactly did you stop managing the circus?" I laughed. Not nicely. Meanwhile, inside the company walls, panic had metastasized. The legal team was now aware 10 hours too late. The design agency issued a public statement saying they didn't approve the email for distribution. Haley blamed an intern miscommunication that didn't exist. She tried to get HR to send out a memo reframing the leak as an intentional transparency campaign. Someone, God bless them, forwarded me the draft of that memo. It began with, "At company, we believe authenticity is our strongest currency." Investor confidence dropped 11% that day. They didn't even wait for earnings to crash. Haley tried to schedule an emergency fireside chat with the top 10 stakeholders. Only 3 showed up. 2 of them never turned their cameras on. The other just asked, "Why wasn't Victoria consulted?" She smiled, tried to pivot, and muttered something about legacy knowledge being limiting. The call ended 17 minutes early. That night, I sat by my fireplace, my address book on my lap, flipping cards without dialing. Not yet. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't need to. The wall had cracked, and now the water was pouring in. The first call came at 7:42 a.m. Saturday from a number I hadn't saved, but I recognized the area code, Connecticut. That meant boardroom. "Victoria," said a gravelly voice, cheerful in the same way someone might be before offering you a poisoned cupcake. "I was checking in. How's life post-corporate cage?" I poured my coffee and sat down, robe still wrapped around me like a retired general's cape. Peaceful. A pause. "You wouldn't consider coming back, would you?" There it was, half joking, half praying, said with a chuckle that dared me to believe he wasn't serious. I let the silence stretch until he coughed. "I'm flattered," I said finally, "but I don't return to fires I didn't start." He tried to play it off. The desperation was there under the laughter behind the pleasantries oozing out between the word restructure. Later that afternoon, I got a message from Olivia, another board member, the kind who used to forget my name at strategy meetings and now wanted to know if I had any documentation on the compliance back end. I told her I didn't keep company property after termination, which was true. What I had wasn't property. It was memory. A web of whispers and workflow that lived in my head like some ancient cartographer guarding a forgotten coastline. By Sunday, 4 investors had reached out. No pleasantries, no winks, just business. "Can you help us create a backup vessel?" one asked. "Contingency fund, not a coup," I corrected. "Same thing, different lipstick," he muttered. I didn't commit. I just offered to review frameworks. They knew what that meant. Meanwhile, Haley was trying to play whack-a-mole with the financial fires. Her emergency investor update subject line, "Full clarity, big wins coming," was a nuclear mess. She opened by thanking stakeholders for their unwavering compass, then claimed Q3 numbers were temporarily fluid, but Q4 projections were tripling trajectory. She used the word synergistic 6 times, misquoted Steve Jobs, and referred to the firm's burn rate as energetic capital reallocation. One paragraph accidentally included internal comments from her marketing lead. Should we admit the Dropbox crash? Or just say it's a pivot? LMK. It went out like that, untouched. By midnight, 4 major stakeholders had begun pulling liquidity. I only knew because one of them copied me by accident or design. I couldn't tell. The subject line just said enough. The next morning, I saw the rumors surfacing in the smaller finance circles. XYZ Group divesting quietly. Haley not on last internal call. Is Mendez shopping the firm? I closed my laptop. No smirk, no victory lap. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about inevitability. You can't build a ship out of vision boards and ring lights, then act shocked when it sinks. And I wasn't the storm. I was the tide. And tides never beg to be noticed. They just rise. Earnings call day. It used to be sacred. No vacations, no doctor appointments, no fire drills. We'd wear our crispest blazers, double-check every number, and I'd personally make sure no executive had garlic breath or visible pit stains before we went live. But now, it was Haley's circus. At 9:17 a.m., I got the first panicked text from someone in finance, short and shaky. Where are the final numbers? Do you have them? By 9:29, they'd realized no one had locked the Q4 forecasts. No one had even found them. Haley had assumed the reporting team had an automatic pull script. There wasn't one. There never had been. I was the script. At 9:41, she called legal. At 9:44, she called IT. At 9:47, she called someone else. Me. The screen lit up with her name. Well, the number she inherited from the company directory, still listed under emergency contact, institutional. Still routed to the backup line I kept purely for sentiment. I watched it ring, then silenced it. At 9:52, she left a voicemail. I didn't listen. Instead, I sipped my tea and stared out the window at a squirrel dragging a slice of pizza up a tree like it had rent to pay. The world felt appropriately unhinged. At 10:06, the earnings call began. No prepared remarks, no slide deck, no confidence. Haley tried to improvise. We've had an exciting quarter of adaptive restructuring. Numbers are, in review. Our growth trajectory remains fluid but enthusiastic. A pause. Then one investor unmuted. You don't have the numbers. Haley faltered. We're confirming final validations which were slightly delayed due to a misalignment in... You don't have the numbers? He repeated. Silence. Then someone else jumped in. Is Victoria available? She no longer works here, Haley snapped. But we have everything under control. Control. That word hit the room like a clown horn at a funeral. Somewhere in the background, you could hear the owner's voice on speaker asking what the hell is going on. Haley's voice cracked. I don't know. Okay, no one told me she built this thing like a cursed Excel fortress. Sobbing, muffled, the call ended abruptly. The stock dropped 7% before lunch. Haley's PR team launched what they called a reputation recovery task force, which mostly involved changing the Twitter bio and sending fruit baskets to journalists. Too late. The narrative was out. Whispers had turned into bulletins. Investors weren't just mad. They were spooked. They wanted answers, not vibes. That night, Haley sat alone in the office, surrounded by untouched swag boxes and a half-eaten smoothie bowl. The ring light she used for her lunch announcement was still glowing faintly, casting long, exhausted shadows across her whiteboard of dreams. No one called her. No one texted. The only sound in the room was the soft hum of a laptop fan and the final ping of an unreturned Slack message. She picked up her phone, scrolled to my name, hovered, but didn't press it. She just stared at the silent screen, the empty calendar, echoes of a system she thought she'd inherited, but never actually understood. And somewhere across town, I turned on my record player. Let the storm finish its work. The room was quiet, carpeted, neutral tones. One of those hotel conference suites where billion-dollar decisions are made next to a platter of sweating melon cubes. 5 investors sat around the table, not a pagan of vest in sight, just tired suits and sharper eyes than they'd had 3 months ago. I didn't shake hands. I didn't small talk. I just placed a single manila folder on the table and slid it forward. Inside was a full printout of the internal crisis protocols I'd spent a decade refining. Manual ledger correction processes, investor forecasting sequences, escalation trees, all written in my hand, color-coded, annotated. On top, a post-it note read, "This is what I was fired for." No one spoke. One of them, Paul, I think, cleared his throat, opened the folder and skimmed page 2. His brow furrowed. "Page 5? He muttered. "Christ." "Page 9. He looked up. "You were doing all this manually?" I didn't answer. Didn't need to, because by now they'd seen the spreadsheet Haley sent out last week with the cell formulas still showing. They'd seen the Canva decks, the GIFs, the typos, the growth plan that included an initiative titled Brandfield's Q4 Unicorn Sparkle. They'd seen enough. "I'm not here to return," I said calmly. "You have your ship. You chose your captain. What do you want?" one of them asked. I shook my head. "Nothing. I'm already gone." That afternoon, the withdrawals began. Quiet, methodical, deadly. By end of day, the firm's valuation had dropped 23%. By Friday, Haley's LinkedIn was gone. Instagram scrubbed, Twitter deleted. Her last public photo was a blurry shot of her dog wearing a bucket hat. Comments disabled. The company issued a press statement about realignment and digital evolution. No one cared. I didn't celebrate. I moved on, took a call from a competitor on Monday, sat down Tuesday. By Wednesday, I had a new badge, the same title, a better desk, and twice the pay, with a window that actually opened. They didn't want reinvention. They wanted results. On Friday, after lunch, I walked the long way to the parking garage and past the building where it all began. Same glass doors, same revolving entrance. A delivery guy was struggling with a tower of branded water bottles, probably leftover from Haley's wellness integration kit idea. I paused. My phone buzzed. The name flashed across the screen. The company line. It still hadn't removed me from the contact list. I let it ring twice, then pressed mute. No voicemail, just silence. The kind that settles when a storm has passed, and the people who ignored the forecast finally realize what the warning signs meant. I slipped the phone into my coat pocket and smiled. Sometimes, the most valuable assets in a company aren't digital files or viral marketing campaigns, but the quiet, consistent work of dedicated individuals. This story teaches us that true expertise and institutional knowledge are irreplaceable, and their loss can lead to inevitable failure. The positive message is that integrity, hard work, and genuine value will always find their way to success, even if it means a temporary period of waiting. When you are a cornerstone of a system, your absence will create a vacuum that can't be filled by charisma or empty buzzwords. Trust in your own competence and let your work speak for itself. The right opportunities will always find you.